The Love Life and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. I'm going to teach you a rebound protocol that you can use during this episode for when you feel truly stuck, like the scale's moving in the wrong direction and you don't know why. So, this is inspired, just like everything else this spring season that I've talked about on the podcast, from my real life coaching examples. I had two of my clients this week come to me with exactly the same situation, obviously just different circumstances for each one. So I developed this rebound protocol for them and my group coaching for them to write down for what to do when this happens, because it's not a question of if this will happen, it's just a question of when. When we have weight management and you're actively body recomposition, whether you're losing fat, gaining muscle, or doing both, the things that work as you continue to get results with them eventually tend to not work, or maybe they're just not optimized in the results and you don't know why. So you want to have a way to look at a template to help you work through this, especially when it feels emotional that you're not getting results. Because let's face it, when you're showing up with intention, you're putting in the work, you're doing the things, it really feels like you are doing things that should be giving you results and you're not getting results. You're going to feel emotional and reactive to the scale. Many of us have been reactive to the scale for many years. So this reaction can be provoked quite easily, usually. So, this is why a protocol comes into place. It helps us work through the process in a data driven way and guides us to data driven actions that we can experiment with to help you figure out why you're stalled or why the scale's going in the wrong direction. So, this is called the rebound. Let's just define the rebound. A rebound is a feeling. I feel rebounded. That means bounced back, right? It means maybe your routines have been out of sorts. Maybe your eating doesn't feel like it used to. The scale starts fluctuating. Maybe your consistency has faded. And suddenly you start thinking like nothing is working. But for many of you, like legitimately, the scale is showing you data that it's not working anymore, or maybe actually things are going in the wrong direction. So, that reaction, that emotional reaction to the rebound, what happens is it disconnects you from staying engaged in the process. We usually end up throwing off the chains of what we feel as though isn't working, which is, I mean, it can be prescriptive to stop doing what's not working. But unless you have a data driven way to kind of sort through and determine what is still helpful and what actually might be in the way, like a scientist or a detective, we might throw the baby out with the bathwater. We do not want to do that because for most of you, a rebound is really about small, detailed adjustments, small little things that actually have a big impact sometimes in your journey. So, this is the rebound protocol. It's a step by step process. You may want to grab a pen and paper so you can write it down. Again, if you're feeling stuck, frustrated, confused, reactive, discouraged, or convinced nothing's working, you need this protocol. Okay, so the quiet rebound is also something that I see a lot of. This is less dramatic than, oh my God, the scale's going in the wrong direction. I've gained 4 pounds this month, maybe, whereas before I was losing, a few pounds a month. Something's really wrong here. Sometimes there's a quiet rebound too. It rarely begins with this dramatic idea of like nothing is working. It starts with small creep of like things like less planning, less mindfulness around food, more emotional eating, more social eating, more reacting. Maybe your sleep is affected and maybe you just have more exhaustion. Maybe you're in a phase of life like I was last year when I moved twice in 4 months. Maybe you're just exhausted and you need a different approach to take that into consideration. Maybe there's less structure in your life, less honesty. Let's face it, sometimes we're just dialing things in. We're not really being honest for whatever reason because life is always lifing. And so sometimes this rebound is very gradual and we don't notice we're drifting until we sort of like have one inciting incident that makes us aware that we're off track. This is especially common like halfway through any season. And right now, we're a little bit more than halfway through the spring season. This can happen after travel, stressful life periods, normal hormonal fluctuations, or during a phase of burnout, either emotional burnout, work burnout, I mean, you name it, any burnout. So notice the different forms of rebound and use your protocol. Okay. What I want to say about rebounds is that the problem usually isn't like that you overate. The problem is that you disconnected from your awareness. This is the dangerous part because we can't change things that we're not even aware that we're doing. So like automatic eating comes into play. Like if you're having your dinner every night and you're like checking out during the time when you're eating, then your data is disappearing, your honesty is disappearing, your intentionality is disappearing, and all your structure is disappearing. So mindfulness, right? Staying mindful, or I could put it this way, your disconnection from your awareness around the things that help you manage your weight is going to be part of what we need to fix in terms of your rebound protocol. Here's your protocol. Step one, you're going to check your blueprint. Now, your blueprint, if you have my planner, is right there in the planner under my goals. It's under the My Goals tab at the top of your planner. If you want to get my planner, visit my website, hbeardsley.com/planner. You can use the coupon code SPRING20 for 20% off. Get the blueprint. It makes it so easy. If you don't want to get the blueprint, you've got to find my podcast. You got to scroll back to the beginning of 2026 when I'm talking about the blueprint. I kind of go over the worksheet and you can listen to that and recreate it for yourself. So, the blueprint, when you check it, you're going to check to see have my actual habits lately in the past 2 weeks moved outside of the range that I have established on my weight management blueprint. This is where you stop guessing. You start comparing what kind of habits around food have I actually have and compare that to what I know I need to do last time I checked to get results for whatever my goals have been this year. You'll look at things like increased frequency of overeating. Maybe you are portioning your meals a little bit larger if you've just been relying on portioning rather than checking into the space within your stomach to notice what percentage full you're eating to. If you haven't been reviewing your days so that you even know how many overeats you've had, if you have been mindlessly snacking, if you have been eating to feel better, to distract yourself, to maybe give you rewards for working hard, right? I'll have a snack, that kind of thing. Staying up too late, your sleep, or maybe stress in your life. So we're going to look at the blueprint. And then if nothing is coming up there on the blueprint for those 5 main habits that help you manage your weight goals, then I want you to ask yourself this question as part of step 1. Is there a white elephant in the room of my life right now? because there is usually one. What is a white elephant? Maybe that's the burnout. Maybe that's emotional overwhelm. Maybe you have work stress. Earlier this year, I was going through empty nest. Like I was so sad that my kids have moved on from living with me in my house. It was a big adjustment for me. And it did affect how I felt, and it definitely affected my ability to stay as mindful around my eating too. Or maybe this is like arguments you've had in your relationship, maybe changes in work. I mean, is there a white elephant in the room that's affecting you right now? When I ask this question of my clients, usually they say no. And they're not really seeing the obvious giant white elephant that's in their room. So maybe to put it a different way, I'm going to ask you this. Is life right now looking definitely different than how it typically looks? And what is that reason? Okay. And don't minimize the impacts of other people on your life, right? Usually it's relationships, could be professional, could be personal. Okay. So we want to name the white elephant in the room and put that in there too. Step two, now that we've looked at the blueprint and we've named any white elephants in the room, metaphorically, of course, I want you to analyze instead of spiral. So, what does it mean to analyze? This is the most important skill that you have to stay on your journey and not give up. You have to be able to analyze instead of reacting emotionally. This means taking your feelings and all of your thoughts that are creating those feelings about your rebound, and I want you to put them aside. And I want you to put on your detective cap. And I want you to look at your blueprint and compare that with your actual habits from the past 2 weeks. Hopefully, you've been doing some daily planning and you can just flip through your weekly plans and reviews, which has that habit tracker right there where you can see where's my sleep been? How many overeats have I had? Have I been getting my protein? Have I been doing my movement? Right? The most important things. And you're going to compare that with your blueprint. This is where you get insight into the dynamic difference between the blueprint and your actual lived habits. They will give you good data, this analysis about where the potential solutions will live, because it will be in the disconnect between your actual habits and your blueprint. Okay. Emotionally reacting to a rebound on the scale is going to cause you to catastrophize, overcorrect, go into a fuck it cycle from which you may not recover for maybe a few days. For some of my clients, it's a few months. For some of my clients, it's been a few years. Don't do that to yourself. Use your emotions to focus you into action to follow this protocol. Okay. So after your analysis, you're going to move to step three. You're going to create a hypothesis. So you're going to look at the evidence. Okay, my blueprint says I needed to have no more than, say, 3 overeats per week. I need 7 hours of sleep at night. I need 90 grams of protein a day. And for my other movement, I want to do, strength training 3 times a week. Okay. And I want to eat to 70% full when I'm not overeating. And then you compare that to your actual habits and you notice, you know what? I haven't even been planning the past 2 weeks because my in laws have stayed in my house and it's been extremely disruptive. And I was thinking to myself, I got this. I know how to eat. I don't have to plan every day. But now you're noticing maybe the scale is up 4 pounds or something like that. So, with the lack of data, we just know we can make a hypothesis, which is an educated guess. Without planning daily, I probably have some eating habits that are creating too much overeating, too much fueling, so that it's stopped, not only stopped my weight loss, but it's now caused a gain. So I want to bring in that mindfulness. Remember, that key thing is mindfulness by going back to planning. It really is that simple for so many of you. Okay. Some other examples would be to create a hypothesis, would sound something like, oh, I noticed I'm like skipping meals during the day and then I'm overeating at night. Okay. So I want to work on more structured meals this coming week to see if that starts moving things in the right direction. Maybe you noticed in your analysis in step 2 that your weekends, like you're not planning on weekends, like those pages are just completely blank. So you're having a lot of unstructured eating in your recall of like, okay, well, if I didn't review or plan my weekends, how have they been? And maybe some of those just not being intentional about where your overeats are being planned on the weekends. If you are overeating, if you aren't, maybe just your automatic eating without that intention and that structure is defaulting to maybe 80% full. And that's causing the scale to reflect that. Maybe what you noticed is, when I don't meal prep, like I haven't been meal prepping, that's what's different over the past week or two. And when I don't prep my meals, I tend to skip meals or just snack through my meals. And it doesn't feel like I'm overeating, but maybe I am because I'm not actually sitting down and having a meal. Another example, maybe work is like crazy right now. You're coming home emotionally exhausted and you're using food to distract you from thinking about how exhausting work is right now. That's a common one. Maybe what you're doing that you noticed is that everything just like things are kind of like you're planning, you're mostly eating the way that you know that you need to get results, but like everything feels really hard. And so your motivation, natural desire to kind of do the things, everything feels really hard. Okay. And that means maybe you're relying on white knuckling through this instead of relying more on your systems, like, say, food prep or being mindful of when you portion things out, right? Giving yourself the easy button to make weight management feel easy. Maybe you need to look at some of your systems around your movement or your food prep, maybe your shopping, maybe your cooking that make these things feel easier for you. Because, maybe right now you just need it to be easier. Okay. So these are just some examples of hypothesis. I don't know what they are for you. If you need help with this, you should coach with me and contact me and I can help you through this. This is my zone of genius. I can help and spot what the issues are to see how the system is not optimized for you. But in lieu of coaching with me, I have these steps and you can learn to do it too. If I can learn how to do it, you can learn how to do it. So your role is to come up with a really good hypothesis, not just some idea of what might help, but the main idea of what needs to be optimized or fixed so that you can start getting results again, or you can at least stop a gain and move to maintain this week. And then maybe the week after, then we move toward losing fat. Okay. Just take it one step at a time. You don't have to dogpile on yourself. You don't have to make your conclusion about what you're experimenting with over the next week. Remember, don't make big, grandiose assignments for yourself that feel too big to do. The hypothesis should be an idea of a doable action that you can do just a little bit differently over the next 7 days so that you can minimize the rebound and or turn it around, whatever feels most doable for you. Okay? 'Cause if you can't implement it, it's not helpful. So whatever you decide to do over the next 7 days based on your hypothesis, it has to be executable. So you have to ask yourself and look at your calendar. Okay? Step 4 is this doable reset, right? The actions that come from your hypothesis about what is in the way, and based on what's in the way, what should you do differently has to be doable. It cannot be a fantasy plan. It cannot be a makeup for fucking up idea of working harder and burning yourself out. Rigid plans, punishment plans, overly ambitious plans, extreme plans, they're not sustainable. Do not do that to yourself. Absolutely not. You're going to do it differently this time. You're going to take the smallest thing that can make the biggest difference that you can actually follow through on. Okay? For anybody with a reset, and I've coached, mind you, hundreds of women now, is never their capability or their smarts or their anything to do with their capacity. The issue is the plan itself is usually too difficult for you to keep up. So I don't want you planning on doing anything that isn't achievable for you. It's okay to build up and get better at things, but you have to be willing to take the first step and not make it feel dreadful for yourself or like you're doing that white knuckling thing or trying too hard. Okay. So maybe your reset looks like, well, let me say this first. Your rebound plan for the next week, remember, keep it to the next 7 days. Then you're going to weigh in and you're going to see, does my weigh in support whether or not this hypothesis is working? If it isn't giving you results, then you have to go back, check the data again, come up with analysis between your blueprint and how you're actually following through with your habits around food, and then come up with a new hypothesis and then test that one. For most of my clients, it's the easiest thing to do is just try to overeat one fewer time in the coming week. Or perhaps eating a little bit less at your meals. And maybe not every meal, but maybe just dinners, maybe 3 dinners a week, something like that. Maybe just 1 dinner a week. You got to check this receptivity with, inner you. You need agreement between inner self and manager self for whatever you are tasking yourself with to minimize this rebound that's happening. Okay. So a good rebound plan should support stabilizing yourself. It should be simple. It should focus on small, consistent actions and feeling good about re-engaging in a way that feels like it is prescriptive, right? That it's strategic, that it's going to give you results. You should feel encouraged and curious about what could happen if you just do these slight modifications in the coming week. Okay, not perfect action, just re-engagement. So specifically, right? Maybe it looks like maybe you're eating your dinners a little bit earlier, so you're not so hungry when you come to the dinner table. Maybe it's just simpler meals that require less cooking from you because you're tired. Maybe it's less snacking so that you have to make fewer decisions around food if you have kind of like food decision burnout. This is a real thing if you've been at this for a while. Every time you open yourself to an eating opportunity, you have to make more decisions around food. So for me, I prefer to do less snacking. I have a podcast on why I hate snacking. And you can go back and way back, I think it's like episode, I don't know, around 10 or something. I really don't like snacking for this reason because you all are doing so much to change your habits around food. This takes a lot of, it spends a lot of your energetic bandwidth to be mindful around your habits around food. The more often you're eating, there's multiple amounts of more decisions that you have to make that are in alignment with how you want to eat. So for me, I'd rather, wait till I'm nice and hungry before I ever eat. And then I definitely want to eat to 70 to 75% full. And then I want to forget all about food until I'm hungry again. I don't want to give myself more opportunities to potentially get it wrong or like, you know, negotiate whether or not I'm hungry enough to eat. Like before I eat, definitely want to be hungry. I want there to be no doubt about it, right? So simplifying things can really help you. You could maybe practice with better sleep boundaries. It's later. It's lighter later now that we're moving toward the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. And this is when I hear a lot of my clients saying that they're staying up later just because there's more light, right? Like we don't really think about going to bed until later in the day. Back in December, it was for most of us in the northern hemisphere. It was getting dark around 5:30 p.m. Now it's not getting dark until almost 8 p.m. So this can definitely affect your sleep boundaries. You might want to revisit those. Maybe another simple reset looks like reducing your evening grazing, re-engaging with tracking. Maybe you want to count calories for a week, and that's fine. You can do that, right? I encourage you to not have to do that, but tracking calories is absolutely a tool on the table for you to just kind of check with what your intake is. If you feel like, it just doesn't feel like I'm overeating, I don't understand why I'm gaining, count calories. Let's see what it says. Maybe you are consistently taking in more than you think you are. Okay. So the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to restabilize your systems quickly without too much emotional overwhelm. Okay. For the next thing I want to talk to you about is you want this to be a wobble, not a setback. So a wobble is not the same thing as a setback. A wobble is a few days of being off, maybe a few days of emotional eating, maybe a few days of looser structure, maybe a week of being less consistent, or some temporary drift in being mindful. That's very different than a setback. A setback happens when you disappear from your mindfulness entirely. That's a danger zone because when you check out from being mindful around your relationship to food, you will default to old habits that not only cause you to gain your weight in the first place, but that probably kept you there for too long. So don't let that go. Don't let your awareness go entirely with a setback. Embrace a wobble as a way for you to recommit to simple strategic actions that are doable. It's like a mini reset, and there is no shame in a wobble. Everybody has them. But I don't want you disappearing from your number one super skill, which is staying consciously aware around your decisions around food and how it feels to eat inside of your body. Staying in touch with your hunger, staying in touch with your satiety, staying in touch with your percentage full. Okay. The women who stay connected to their awareness recover faster always. So your personal rebound protocol will address things like what are your early warning signs that you're in a wobble? What habit tends to drift first? What does create the biggest difference for me when you have engaged with this protocol? You should start learning about yourself. Like what starts the rebound? What helps me stabilize fastest? When I'm struggling, what kind of support do I need? Do I need to reach out to my accountability partner or, maybe coach again? I have a lot of clients who, They work with me for a while and their skill sets are amazing and they're ready to kind of try it on their own. And then oftentimes they'll come back for a few, sometimes just a month. Sometimes they just need one coaching session with me. Sometimes they want to work with me for another 6 months, something like that, because it helps them. So, whatever it is for you, you're engaging, creating your protocol, implementing your rebound protocol should answer some of those questions for you about how you operate. So, you can recognize when drift starts to happen and you're in a wobble, so you know how to get out of it too. Okay. The goal is to catch it faster, respond clearly, re engage quickly, and stay connected to yourself without shame or judgment. So, if you've been feeling stuck, discouraged, and the scale is moving away from what you want to happen, you do not need to panic. You do not need punishment. You do not need to white knuckle this. You need a protocol. You need your awareness. You need honesty. You need to analyze. You need to create a hypothesis. And then you need to apply your protocol and experiment. That is what is the most effective way for you to take action from noticing that you're in a rebound. Your brain will tell you to spinning out and spiraling is the answer. It is never the answer. I want you to get to work. I want you to pay attention. I want you to experiment with simple changes and keep running the experiment until the experiment gives you results. It will give you results if you make data-driven analysis about what's happening. This is something that you can absolutely do. It's not a mystery. It's not even that difficult. It just requires a commitment to yourself and to the process. Just knowing that, like, changing your weight sustainably isn't easy. I make it easy with a lot of things that I do, but that doesn't mean that the journey itself is easy. And I hope you feel seen in this. It's not supposed to be easy, because if it was easy, it wouldn't mean anything to you. If you can make meaning from the struggles around some of this consistency around your weight management, you will learn about yourself. You will have insight about your life and what is affirming for you and helpful for you and what is not. And that too is part of the weight journey, is really learning some of those lessons. We don't get a pass out of that part of it. Like, you don't get to just like get to your goal weight and not learn things about yourself. And I hate to break it to you, but we learn way more about who we are and what we truly need through challenges than we do through joy and happiness. That's just the way it goes for this human experience. Thank you for joining me. Visit me on Instagram at Thrive in Midlife and let me know how you're doing with your protocol. If you have any questions, I'm there. DM me. Let me know. If you want to coach with me, you can contact me there. Stay focused, and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and become a VIP subscriber. You'll learn how to work with me. You'll get 2 free gifts, access to exclusive VIP content, and get a discount on the digital follow-through planner.